All right, so we are ready to start. Okay, so we are ready to start. How is everyone doing? I hope you've had a good day. Yeah, you can just type for me there in the chat box how you're doing as we get started. So today we are going to look at modeling. Modeling tips and tricks that you can use. I'm not necessarily going to teach you how to build models from scratch, but I'm going to show you techniques that you can use to make your models look good and display well on your drawings. So, quick recap, on Monday we focused on how to work, how to be organized, creating a work environment, and I shared that work environment with you. So hopefully you've started using it or you've played around with it to suit your needs. On Tuesday, I taught you how to use favorites, how to create shortcuts, and I mentioned that I have included shortcuts in my work environment. So you can also use those. So quick way to know what they are, just go to options, work environment, keyboard shortcuts. That's where you can set those. And yesterday I talked to you about controlling your workspace, how you can work within ArchiCAD to make sure that your views are displaying in different ways. And I taught you how to create clone views, how to set views, how to create view settings. We talked a little bit about graphic overrides and layer combinations and model view options. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about modeling, and first thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about uh, three things majorly. I'm going to talk about attributes, focusing on building materials and surfaces, and then I'm going to talk about intersections, how to make sure that ArchiCAD shows your intersections well. And finally, I'm going to talk about just a few workarounds that you can make. Yeah, so on that, we're going to talk about um, solid element operation. Sorry, we're going to talk about how I made this beam, how I make such railings. I'm also going to talk about how I'm able to make my windows have such intricate settings. Yeah, so let's get started. So first things first, uh, attributes. So attributes are, I would call them settings that control how your model looks. So whether it's in 3D or in plan form or in elevation form, attributes are the settings, or they are what they are, attributes. So under attributes we have uh, layer combinations, which we've talked about. Layers, we have lines, we have fields, we have building materials, we have composites, we have pens and colors, which we talked about. We have surfaces, we have zone categories, we have profile manager and operations profile. And finally, we have the attribute manager. So today we are going to talk about building materials. I won't touch on composites. I'll touch on surfaces, and I'll also talk about profile manager. So let's get to it. So you can, if you are using the Bazel work environment, you'll find this palette up here, the attributes palette. If you don't have that, you can just go to options, element attributes, building materials. That's where we're going to start. And so ArchiCAD has various ways of displaying building materials, or it has custom building materials that are built into the system. but this is a custom template that I have. So the settings are a bit different. First of all, the ID, this element identification number. The name is different, as well as there are these tags here. I won't call them tags, but categories. I categorize them: concrete, masonry, metals. Yeah, and then we have this what we call priority. So once you open this, you have now describing your element here, or your building material. So you have the name that you give it. So you can just type it in here as you want. And then structure and appearance. So this here is the cut field. How do you want the cut field to display? So we have a variety of cut fields, vectorial fields that ArchiCAD provides us with, but we can create our own if you know how to. So you're free to make your own. So here I have a few on masonry. I have mortar, I have non-structural, I have structural, also a finish. Yeah. So for this one, we're using masonry structural. That's the standard that we use, this 45-degree hatching. But in addition, ArchiCAD asks us for two pens. So we have this foreground and background pen. So this hatch here, which I have, this fill that I refer to, we have the lines, the hatch lines. That's the foreground pen. And then the background pen is this white behind here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be white. Mine is a dark grayish. So let me just open so that you can see on the plans how it looks like. I don't think I have any wall using masonry, so let me create one using masonry. Let me change the layer to ArchiCAD layer for now. Change the building material to machine cut, and then let me switch off my graphic override so that you can see everything. Yeah, so like this is coral stone, so it has this brown texture to it and a black foreground fill. So the brown is the background fill and the black is the foreground fill. If we are talking about our masonry wall, let me adjust the height to 3000 so that you can see it as curve. So in this case, the black lines, 45-degree lines, are foreground pen, and the gray is our background pen. So that's what you set there. And a while back we talked about global settings. So editing this in building materials affects the changes everywhere. So if I just change this pen here, if I decide that I want my walls to be blue, that will always happen. If I change it there, if I decide that I want all my walls to be red, I can do that. So that's the beauty of using. But I'll bring back my pens to was it 143? Yes, 143. Yeah, that's how it was. And always, if you make a change, you want to click OK. So that's that on the appearance in 2D. But then we have appearance in 3D. So 3D appearance is controlled or dictated by 3D appearance is dictated by surfaces, which we're going to talk about next. So building materials are what we call a super attribute. Super attribute in that it borrows from fields and it also borrows from surfaces. Surfaces in turn are also super attributes in that they borrow slightly from fields. So in addition to that, we have this here, intersection priority. What intersection priority basically says is that if ArchiCAD is, as it calculates the intersections, if we have let me just do it in sections so that you can see accurately what I'm talking about. So let me create a slab here, reinforced concrete, and then let me draw a section line. And then which section is this? That's S01, building section A. So let me open that. Give it a second. No, that's not the one. Yes, this is the one. So again, let me have no overrides. Let me also have here show all. Change that again. Yeah. So intersection priorities, what they say is, if I'm working with this slab here, so what's a material of higher intersection priorities, what it does is that it automatically cuts through that. So you see how this beam has behaved, how this slab has behaved, is that ArchiCAD knows, or that from life we know, that if we are building with masonry, we want to build masonry on top of a concrete slab or a concrete beam. So concrete is given a higher priority in that it cuts through the masonry. So at no point will you have masonry being stronger. We assume essentially that concrete is stronger than masonry. So that's what ArchiCAD is telling us to do. And this applies to different stuff. So you see this priority here. So if it's blinding, blinding is obviously not as strong as reinforced concrete. So you see that this number changes from weak to strong. So it says that if you are working with, now if I decide to add blinding here, let me just come to, where is my section? Yeah, this is my section. Let me just copy paste this slab, and then this second slab, let me change the material to concrete blinding. So you see now how this has worked is that now masonry is stronger than blinding. Like, you wouldn't want your masonry wall being supported by blinding. So that's why we have masonry being of a higher priority than blinding. And we can continue copying this and seeing what happens. Let's change this to, say, brick. See, brick now is almost as the same priority as masonry, so it will take more. If it's limestone, if it's just basic stone, aluminium, structural metal, let's say maybe let's look at steel lower, if it's dimensional lumber or heavy timber. So heavy timber, you see, it's heavy enough, or it's dense enough that it can support masonry. So we have heavy timber as having a higher intersection priority. So that's that on intersection priority. So this fill here, each, as you build your building materials, you want them to be in such a way that they correspond well to fields. But we'll talk about fields as we move on. And then going further, we can expand this, and I won't talk about classifications right now, but we can talk about ID. So this number here, you set it here. Design criteria, these are just some more settings which don't really matter to us now, but if you're going deeper in BIM, you maybe want to do energy simulations. You'd have thermal conductivity, densities there, heat capacity. That's this. Now you're working with concrete blinding, so these figures are different for each material. So this template of mine is robust enough that it has this information. So let me just collapse this and remain with physical properties. Yeah, so that's that on building materials. So how do you create a new building material? If you want, you can either create it from scratch, completely new, or you can duplicate an existing one. So duplication, it always duplicates the one that is selected. So, but it doesn't make much sense to duplicate. So maybe I want to create stainless steel as a building material. Say it's a new one. What's the ID? Now the ID here, I can't edit it from there, so I need to go to ID and categories. And the ID here, it's under metal, so it will be 0505 050. No manufacturer and all that, so instantly it falls there. Now, what priority would I want to give it? I know stainless steel is stronger than aluminium, but it's not strong enough that it can be considered a structural metal. So if structural metal is 800 and aluminium is 400, I'd say I'd maybe put my stainless steel at about 600 maybe. So I'll type it in there, 600. And then now it asks what is my cut fill. So my cut fill, I can look for something that metals don't really have a standard for defining them. So maybe let me use this metal non-structural iron. In fact, iron, since steel is essentially created out of iron. I always want my foreground pen to be this 0.05, very fine with no change. Since it's a metal, maybe I'd give it this really faint gray. Yeah. And then now surface. Do I have a surface for stainless steel? Yes, I do. Metal finish stainless steel. So link that there, and voila, I have my new material. If I want to delete it, I can just as easily come here, delete. So if there are no model elements which are using this material, I can just delete it without any repercussions. But let's say I have here coral rock and I choose to delete coral rock. It tells me this will result in missing attributes for model element, because now I have 193 elements using that, and I have one profile using that. So I wouldn't want to delete this, so let's cancel that. So that's that on building materials. But building materials will take you only as far as your surfaces do, at least in 3D. So let me give that a second to load. So surfaces, let's go to 3D. So as you can see here, I have various surfaces that I'm working with. I have this beige here, I have this white, I have the roof, I have my wood. There is this surface here for the wood, there's a different surface here for this column, for this post and these railings. This is also different, this beam underneath here, doors, stairs, slab. So all that I can control using my surfaces. So now when you go to surfaces, same thing, organized using the ID into groups. So concrete is 03, 04, and so on and so forth. So under surfaces, we are going to deal with basic engine and right now only. This signware is relevant if you choose to render using the built-in ArchiCAD rendering engine, which is SignRender, or Redshift if you are having a really advanced model. So under basic engine settings, we have this first group. exposure to light. So under exposure to light, we have surface color, we have under transparency, transmittance, so how much light does it let through. Attenuation, I'm not sure what that is. So give me a minute to check what attenuation is. Attenuation basically means how reduction. So I'm thinking here is how much light does it prevent from going through. So something with a higher attenuation could be possibly translucent. Now under emission, this is how much light does it emit. So if you are building, if you are working with a material, say a lamp material, which I think there is one here. Let me see. Storage, assembly, glass. Let me just work with this. If I was to play around with emission and give it that, you see now my glass here emits some light, and the higher that value is, the less light it emits. So if you want to have, let's say, stained glass, you could work with that probably. Let's set that back. Let's make that back to 0. So it can be a complete black. Yeah, and then after that we have reflection. So obviously glass is reflective, so you can play around with that. Yeah, now under transparency settings, this would work best if you're working with glass. So different glass have different levels of transmittance, attenuation, ambient reflection, diffuse reflection, shininess, specular, all that. Yeah, so you see as you cycle through that, it changes if it's frosted glass and all that. Yeah, so in addition, we also have this cover fill. So the cover fill is if we choose, or rather in elevation views, in elevation and section views. So up until ArchiCAD 25, elevations could only display using, if you were to choose to display elevation in color, you could only use it, you could only show either the surface color with vectorial hatching or not. So if you look closely to this surface here, you'll see that there's some slight stippling, slight stippling. So that's because I've set this cover fill. Now this surface here, it's stucco beige. It's using a cover fill that has this render. Yeah, whereas the stucco white is just white. So I did that for just to have that difference. You can see the roof has this this tile effect, so it looks sort of shingle effect. Is there anything else with a cover fill? Yeah, so that's that on cover fills. Yeah, so for concrete non-structure, I have stipple effect. Precast, it's a different one. Structure, different background. So if we start coming to stone exterior, now that this is where you start getting really different vectorial effects. You can have this masonry with that pattern. If it's stone exterior, we have that pattern. If it's structural, non-structural, closer to brick. Yeah, most metals don't have cover fill, save for this chain link has that Yeah, anything else with a cover fill? Maybe this wood structural, but I see that's missing. So if that's missing, means that this is a copy. This is actually a copy. So I can delete that. No missing attributes. Can also delete that. No missing attributes. Okay, so that's in order. Yeah, so that's the settings on the cover fill foreground, and you can always edit this pen to have it at whatever color you want it to. You can choose to go, let's say I am working with brick, I can choose to have maybe a reddish pen. So let me edit this wall here. Let that effect change, let that take place first. So I have this wall here. Let me change this surface to be brick. So it was big common bond, I'm thinking. Give it a minute to change up or to reflect the changes as desired. Yeah, so you see I've changed the changes in place, that color there. Yeah, so you can go as crazy as you want to, the sky is the limit, or how you want to present your drawings. That's as far as ArchiCAD can take you. You choose what you want to. So let me give that a minute to undo. Okay, let's go back to surfaces. And then now, because we've spoken about that, the next thing here is, let me first deselect this wall. Let me bring this back to 64 here. So now let me open up 3D so that you start seeing some changes. So I had this wall here. Yeah, this wall. So I'm going to be playing around with this wall so that you see what changes. So let's go here and override this surface. So let's work with the brick. So we have common bond. You see that there is that texture. We have Flemish bond. It's shifted slightly. We have herringbone. You see how that works. We have brick running bond. So that's closer to common bond. Masonry non-structural. Masonry structural. This closer to the Ndarugo that we know and love so much. And what else can I play around with? I can play around with this stone finish, sandstone, stone finish, marble stone. Yeah, so if you are working in interiors, this could be a very good idea for countertops. But then now, how and where how fast do I make those changes, and where do I get those changes? So ArchiCAD has what we call a surface catalog, and this catalog is loaded in via the libraries. So first let me show you where they are hosted. So click on library manager. That's always found under file, and then under this here now under ArchiCAD library 26 we have this surface catalog. And now this surface catalog has so many textures, and we can start. If we click on these, we see that these textures are essentially just JPEG images, JPG images, so that you can now, ArchiCAD has provided this for you. You can play around with them as much as you want to. However, if you have a material that you want to create and the image is not in Surface Catalog, you can always download your image. So let's say I maybe want to work with, let's say maybe granite texture. So let me look for a nice image. Give me a minute. Found a slight problem. Okay, I'm back. So I was saying I can always download an image which I want. So let me look for such an image and then show you how I can quickly load that into ArchiCAD. Okay, so granite texture. So let me download it. You won't see it since I'm sharing only one screen, but I'll show you once I download it. Quick check. Yeah. So now back to ArchiCAD. Now I want to create a new surface, a new kind of granite, which is dark grayish. So how do I go about that? First of all, first let me finish up on textures. You can always load textures by clicking on this browse for image. Yeah, if you browse for image, it either directs you to the Surface catalog or the embedded library, or I can now add an external image out here. So first of all, let me create my new let me just replicate this one. Let me replicate this one. So I can duplicate it and call it granite dark gray. Dark gray. Yeah. Okay. So once I have this here, now I want first of all to change the surface color, which I can just do here. Just drag this slider slightly, make it darker. And now this image here. Now the image I want, I know I can find a dark grayish here by cycling those. That's too dark. So this multicolor, I can have that. So ArchiCAD, it's robust, but then assuming I don't have the surface or the image that I want. Let me now look for the one that I just downloaded. So this is always as an image file, and then you can click open. Then once it opens, now it places it into the embedded library. And then I can just, once that is selected, click OK. So with that there, so what is the difference? What is the difference? Oh yeah. So you see now, as different from that, this preview is always how it will look in 3D. So that's that on the surfaces. So as you build your model, think of how can you automate, or how can you create your building models, your building materials, such that they are always linked to surfaces, or create such good surfaces that you can be applying as overrides. So if I have a granite worktop, I can have just one material for granite, and if I have that one material for granite, which is here, it will always be linked to this stone finish granite. But if I'm playing around and I want, oh, I forgot to click OK, so it has not saved. So, but let's assume that that different one is there. So if I wanted now to make it such that I don't have the same ones, I can just come here and override this specific element. So again, echoing what I said a few days ago, they are what we call global settings. Surfaces, editing surfaces is a global setting, in that when I edit a surface, all elements that are using that surface will show that change. Or if I edit a building material, all elements using that building material will change. But now these overrides are what we call instance changes. They occur one at a time. It does not, what if I create a surface override, it does not affect the building material, it just affects the element. But if I change the surface on the building material, every element using that building material will have that change, whether that override is on or off. But the override always has first preference. ArchiCAD gives preference to the overrides. Yeah. So now that's that on materials. Yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, on surfaces. Yeah. So the next part is complex profiles. So complex profiles are where, or their use comes in play, where I know how my section looks like, or how it would look like in elevation. So a profile, when I say profile, essentially what I mean is how it looks from the side. So if I were to rotate this model to the side, this here, this is the profile, because that's how it looks from the side. How it looks from the front doesn't really matter to me. So same thing applies when we talk about the profile of someone. That's how they look from the side. So ArchiCAD, if I have something that has a very distinct shape from the side, but from the front doesn't really change, that's where I use profiles. Now profiles are managed using this profile manager. So again, that you find it either on the palette here, or options, element attributes. You can either use this profile manager, or you can just cycle down here under complex profile manager. And then now ArchiCAD gives you a list Again, this list is different from the default one because these are built. It's linked to my template. So different profiles that you can use, different ones. There are profiles for model, primary models, such as this schematic staircase. Different ones for balcony, secondary. So parapet wall, roof parapet, all that. So let's start with, do I have a parapet in this model? No, I don't have a parapet, but I have this one here. So let me right click. It started dragging. So let me right click that, and then there should be check solidity, morph selection. Is this a morph? Oh, it's a morph. Oh, this is a morph. Sorry. I was talking about morphs when I should be talking about profiles. Yeah, but this I'm sure is a profile. Yeah, so let me just right click and then click on edit selected profile. Yeah, so this profile here, it has a width first and foremost, and it has a height. So, but then this is not the best one to use. So let me just open up. Let me use this stair string. Looks like an I-beam of sorts. So when you create profiles, you create them as fields. And these fields, this is a field here. And these fields, first of all, let's change the outline to that. Yeah, so let's change that. So these fields are made up in a way that they are linked to, first of all, let me talk about different kinds of fields. So let me save this, and then let me exit that. Let me go to ground floor. So when we are working with fields, we have different kinds of fields. We have so we have different categories. So we have drafting, we have cut fields, we have cover fields, we have building material field, and we have surface. So this is why I was saying building material corresponds to the cut field, and surface corresponds to the cover field. Cover field. So let's go back to our profile manager. Let's open that up. Edit our stringer. Yeah, this one here. Click on edit. So let me just change up that scale, something that is easier. So when we open these settings, first of all, we have this field here. So now this field type is this is where the field category is building material. So it links directly to the building material. So in this case, it's metal structural. So that's what we want. And then what changes can we make to them? I won't really go deep into these modifiers and drafting because that will take a whole lot of time. But number one, we can make it such that choose what this component is. Is it a core? Is it a finish? Yeah. So if I were to create let me edit, say this parapet here, this roof parapet wall. Yeah. So now we have different components here. It's very easy to see. We have this wall here. We have this brick facing here, and we have this concrete precast coping. So here, very easily, I would come and say that's the core. But now that can't be core if it's brick facing, that will be finish. Stone coping, will it be core? Not really a finish, so I will put that on. So remember when yesterday we were talking about this structural display. So under structural display, this parapet, if I were to choose show only the core load bearing elements, only the masonry part will show, and throw away the brick facing, throw away this coping here. So this is just why use complex profiles for something such as this. I wouldn't want to start modeling every single aspect here. Model this wall, first draw this wall, and then draw another brick facing wall on top, and then try to model this using morph. So because I know how it looks in section is standard, nothing will change about the section. So I can just draw this and then extrude it. So the profile remains the same. Now the length and the shape of the element is what changes. Yeah, so that's that on complex profiles. So I save the changes. Yeah, okay. So next thing now to talk about. Next thing I'd want to talk about is now intersections. Intersections, first of all, we know the basic ones. A wall intersects into a wall if they are of the same type, if they are of the same building material, but let's say I choose to make this to be a timber wall, heavy timber wall. It takes preference over that because the reference line has taken that. Yeah, it actually takes preference over that anytime. Yeah, so let me just undo that. So that's the first intersection we know of. But then in 3D, we can have, now 3D, ArchiCAD is smart enough such that in 3D, elements that are using the same surface will intersect, will seem to intersect. So let's say I have this slab here. This is a slab, this is a wall, there's another slab here, there's another wall here, but it all looks to be the same thing. Why is that? It's because the surface that I'm using for the surfaces that are interacting or that are on the same plane are the same. But if I was to change this beam, this slab, sorry, and change it maybe to an override which is still white, to a surface which is still white, that's stucco, it was on stucco white, but change it to color white. Now actually it's same color, same color. If they look close, so I hadn't changed that. So let me change that. Has that reflected really? So alright, still on stucco white. Is this layer locked by any chance? No, it's not unlocked. So let me change it in here. Call it color white. Okay. Yeah, now you see, now that change has come. Because the texture is different, now this line will come in. But so basic rule of intersecting, making sure that stuff intersects in 3D. Number one, make sure they all lie on the same plane. So I would really need to model intricately, making sure that the intersection are okay, the beams, columns, slabs, they are all aligned, and then make sure that on that plane that they are that you want them to see as one, make sure that that is the same texture there. So that's basically it in terms of intersection. I am not going to add anything else on intersection. And some things you can find about them. Yeah, but then we have this handy feature called intersection priority. And intersection priority and this, how do you want them to be displaying? So first of all, I've said here to I want my end surfaces to override using adjoining walls. But why is it that even though all the surfaces of this wall, the front, the back, I mean the outside, the inside, and all the end surfaces and the edge, they're all beige. But how come this one, this specific surface here is white? And that's because of something we call and overriding the edge. So this edge here, there is this check mark I've said. I want this end surface here, I want it to be overridden using this adjoining wall. But if I uncheck that, you see, now that, and that's because it was white because this adjoining wall was also white. Yeah, so that's something that is a nice thing to know, uh, especially if you're thinking about color and all that. I think it makes much more sense if this one here, it will also make much more sense if I had it as override. Yeah, this is actually overridden, but oh yeah, it's because this wall here, because there's no surface here for it to interact with. It's just a door, an opening, an empty opening. Yeah. So, so is there anything else to add on that? So you can even play around with morphs. So here I played around with morphs. I played around with this beam. And once you come, bonus thing I can talk to you about is now in elevation. Now, how can we start making ArchiCAD show nice colored elevations? So let me just play around with the elevation settings here. So number one, I started by making sure my building materials are set correctly. Next step is to make sure that now your surfaces correspond correctly, that you have surfaces which have a beautiful texture, surfaces have a nice cover fill that they are working with, and that the pen is set well. So with all those in place, with all those settings in place, now we can start giving color to our elevation. So from ArchiCAD 25 to 26, you can have it such that this is not a color fill. It's actually a texture. You can have the color fill, and by color fill, I mean this. Let it just load. I was reflecting. Okay. Oh yeah, I have overrides on. So let me switch off those overrides. Let me switch off those overrides. Let it. Yeah, this is what it means by color fill. So it's just the color. This color here that we were talking about, this surface color. So if it's stucco beige, so let's just go to stucco beige, and that's I think on 09. Yeah, this, so you see this surface color here. Now this color is the one that is being used here. But What if we want our elevation to actually show this image? So this is where we go to view settings, elevation settings, and change it up so that you have actual surface texture fill. Now instead of a color fill, it's a texture fill. I like to use shaded. I also like for my fade distant elements, those one back there. Can I have a shadow? Yeah, yes, please. Let's have that shadow. And then wait for the beautiful things to happen. Uh-huh. Yeah, disclaimer, if you choose to use this setting, texture fill, use sparingly because as you can see, it takes quite a while to load. So let's give it a moment and then I will get back to it. Has it loaded? Yeah, now it's loaded. So you see now this actually looks like wood. The glass is different. The stucco beige now has that actual stucco beige color or texture. If it's my wood, if it's my distant elements, now they look faded. So that's a setting that can actually make your drawings look much better. So remember, as we do this, the essence is to make it such that you are modeling as sparingly as possible. Yeah, let me just switch on the correct layer combination so that it shows everything. Yeah, but as it loads now, we are close to the end. I'm not adding anything else here. So would you guys, does anyone have a question that they'd like or a concern that they need addressed? I'll just start shooting it them on the chat box there as we wait for this to show. Yeah, so I'll be taking your questions now. Hmm. Does the silence mean that we're all good? Yeah, I think that means that Sharon, thank you. Yeah, that's good. You should definitely look to elevate how your work looks. Yeah, so I was to talk about these windows. So let me talk about these windows real quick. Windows number one. Windows have a few settings, these special window settings. So it first started with an arctop window, but they can apply to everything. So the reason for this, it looks louvered, is Windows, we have this sash option here. So I can choose to have either this no grid, solid panel, or so I went with vent sash. With this vent sash, I can either choose to have this as any angle I want it to. I can make it straight, I can make it to be a Z profile and angle it. And then now the next part, now that's the sash, how it looks. And then next thing is this white surface here. That's what we call a casing. So that casing is how you'd add an exterior. So let me show it in 3D. Yeah, this is the casing, this white surface here. And you can set it to any dimension that you want it to. You can make it protrude by however much you want it to. You can give it now this casing doesn't really have a building material that it uses, but then it has a surface. So this is where you'd override it at. Yeah, so that's same thing applies to the doors. You can just go through those settings and you'd see how much control you have over your design. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Nancy, as well. Okay, so if we have nothing else to add on, uh, yeah, once again, I'll remind you, if you'd like to have these settings, if you'd like to start using these settings to your work, and you don't want the hassle of creating them on your own, I have a template with these settings already in at play. All the pens that you would need, all the surfaces, all the composites, all the building materials, all the profiles. Yeah, so that template, as I mentioned, I'm selling it for 1,500 shillings. If you'd like to purchase it, you can reach me on my inbox and we can talk about it. Yeah, so tomorrow is our final day. So after tomorrow, yeah, now we can discuss how you'd like to move on as we continue. But I'll leave that for tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll talk about how to share your ArchiCAD model, how to organize your drawings, how to create what how I can teach you to create a model. It's called a BMX hypermodel that you can use to communicate with clients on a mobile app, tablets, what else? Computer. You don't have to power up ArchiCAD every time you want to do a presentation. ArchiCAD has BMX for that. So I'm going to show you tomorrow how to use it. So get excited for that. Yeah. So any remarks before we end the meeting, before we end the call? Is there anyone who feels like they have something to say? Okay, it seems there's no one. So thank you for being engaged through the 1 hour, 10 minutes that we've been together. It's actually 1 hour, come to think of it. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow and have a good night. Thank you, Vera, as well. In the code for the free